Hello, beautiful. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is a licensed professional counselor with over 11 years of practice. We actually met through the certification program that we're both working through right now. And I was just drawn to a lot of the questions that she was asking, her responses, and just you could fully tell how passionate she is about what she does. And it's just a really beautiful thing to see and hear. So, without further ado, welcome Fawn Weber to your Body is Not the Problem podcast.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. We have lots to discuss and talk about.
So excited. To start, could you tell us a bit more about you, please, and your body image journey?
Sure, absolutely. So, let's just begin with it's always been a certain way, right? So, um, I have always been an overweight person, and I was also raised at the same time, taught that that was just not a thing. It was not an issue. It was just normal. So I have always been an able-bodied, capable person. I've always done things without restraint as far as worried about my weight. Lots and lots of things that I could, specific examples that I won't go into because there's so many, but just I would just do things without regard to my weight, which I think is a super, super size blessing. Um, so when I like throughout all my years of practice, I've been had many different hats, but always serving the population in some form or fashion. I really just started to notice that women, especially, not always, but especially, um, are inhibited by what they think their body can and can't do. And I was looking at women of all shapes and sizes, of all ages and stages, and was thinking to myself, this doesn't make any sense. You can do whatever you want to do. You can even train your body to do things that you've always wanted it to do. I remember as a kid, I had always wanted to do the splits, and that was just not something that I was actually able to do. And I don't know, a gym teacher or something said, well, the more you stretch, the more you'll be able to do the splits. I was like, oh, well, that's cool. The body can, right? So I started stretching every night, and I got myself to the point where I could do the splits, not well, of course, but I could do them. And so it was sort of like a reckoning that I get that this body can do just about anything, regardless of what it looks like. And then enter in my Christian faith as well. It's powerful, so I'm not going to apologize for it, but there's also a just sort of this again, I'm seeing and hearing women of all ages and stages or whatever just really shaming their bodies. And again, I don't get that in the scheme of what Jesus tells us about who we are and what we're about. And God does not have any risk, like there's no rules about what our bodies are supposed to look like. We are made in his image, and his image is amazing. It's perfect. So kind of combining, like I've grown up sort of really trusting my body, liking to do things, doing them anyway, and regardless of how my body shape or whatever is. And what I would say is, there were some things here in the past couple of years, health wise, that sort of shook up my body image. And I think it's important to really recognize that what we do with our bodies eventually has a toll. And I want to make sure at this point in my life forward, and even for other people, like this is what I want to teach people, is to treat your body with respect, because it is deserving of all the worthiness of that. And if not, your body will eventually tell you that it's tired of how it's being treated, and it will ask you to do some different things. And I think that that's okay, as long as we're doing those things out of love and compassion for the body, not out of hate and despising it, and really just wanting to change it because we hate it, because that will not be effective, and it will actually cause more problems. So that's it's sort of a crazy journey. I think I've been blessed along the way, and also up along the way as well. But again, I continue to come back to, this body was designed beautifully by an amazing master. And there's still nothing that it can't do, even, as I have some health struggles that I am working through, and I am actually helping and listening to my body heal itself, which has been an amazing journey for me. So that's sort of that's sort of the beginning there.
Just wow. I think one, thank you, and two, that was just like so beautiful and so amazing to hear. And I think my first question is there anything specific you remember hearing or seeing when you were younger that made you believe your body was on your team?
I don't know. I don't think that there was any direct message, and I think that that's important
Mm,
because there's a lot of messages that to kids via parents that sometimes is direct and sometimes is indirect. All I know is that I was taught to just do and be. I was encouraged to do the things that I wanted to do, was encouraged to, try the things I wanted to try, even if I wasn't successful at them. And I think that that's so important. And again, I know I do remember my mom having some dieting. Like I know if I look back, I remember my mom trying things, but she did not talk about it. It
mm.
was not discussed. And I think that that is incredibly important. If anyone has children, your children are watching. They are sponging up everything you do, not everything that you say. And so I just, there was also a couple of times I remember I didn't feel comfortable in my body as a younger person. And I asked to go on a diet. And my mom was like, let's talk more about that. She didn't necessarily want to just accept that I was overweight and that I had a problem. Like it wasn't a problem. It was like she really wanted to understand where I was coming from. And I think that is so important too, that it wasn't just a, yeah, you're a fat kid and you need to lose some weight. It was never discussed like that. It was more just trying to get me to understand, like, if you're not feeling good in your body or something doesn't feel right, then that's okay. And we can address that part of it. So I think that's an important feature too.
Yeah, I just from like my experience and from many others, I think we're not taught to trust our bodies and we're not taught to listen to it. So hearing that, I'm just like, that's so amazing. That's so good. And so just, it's really, really good to hear. The second question that came up for me was, have you always, I don't know how to phrase the question properly, maybe, but have you always had like a faith in God?
Mm, this is a deep question, girl. You ready? So no, the answer is no. I was not raised quote unquote in faith. My dad was raised Catholic, very Catholic family. My mom was raised in a Lutheran family, but when they raised us, there was no talk of God. There was no talk of Jesus. We didn't go to church. I actually so it was kind of funny. There was a church sort of a couple streets down, so we passed it every time we left our neighborhood. And I had seen a sign for Vacation Bible School a couple summers in a row. I can't even remember. I was in elementary school. And I remember the sign looking fun. Like it had balloons and it was a happy sign. And I remember asking my parents to go to the Vacation Bible School. And again, it was another discussion. It was sort of like, well, why do you want to go to this? And I was like, well, it looks fun. Like, it looks like a good time, right? So I went to that Bible study or the Bible vacation Bible school, and I honestly I didn't understand what they were talking about. I didn't understand. And then again, like I went to church with a couple of friends. Like when I did a sleepover, we would go to church with the family on Sunday mornings. Um, and then I asked, or I either I think my parents just sent me to a camp. Um, and again, it was Christian-based camp, and I had a horrible experience there because again, they were asking me questions that I did not know the answer to. I didn't know how to answer why am I grateful for God? And I was like, who's God? I don't understand what you're saying. They were, singing about Jesus, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. I don't understand. I didn't understand any of it. So those were my early years. And then in high school, really short story, guy came to school. I befriended him. He was a pastor's kid. He invited me to go to church. We started going to church together. We had the best of time. We're the best of friends forever. And through the youth group there, I was brought to Christ. So I was about 16 years old and had a better understanding of what was happening, who Jesus was. It was really interesting because as a younger kid and even in high school, I had a very, very hard time saying God or even saying Jesus. It felt weird because I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it felt weird. So it's not something that we ever talked about. So when I got baptized, I did tell my parents and, invited them to come. They both came, which was amazing, but we still never talked about it. Never had discussions about my faith or theirs. So, fast forward a couple hundred years. um Not disclosing age, not that it matters to me. But anyway, moving into 2011, this is a pivotal year for me. So I had lots of faith in and out. There were many things that I had experienced in college where I called upon God. I had to have his rescue several times, and he did. It was in the middle of just a really, really bad situation, and I was praying for peace, and one morning I woke up and I had it. And when you hear stories of people that happening, you think it's just like some foo-foo kind of thing happening. But girl, it happened. It was an amazing experience. And you cannot deny that it came from something other than earthly things. Because in the situation that I was in, I was just encircled in hate and violence and things like that. And in the middle of that, I found the peace. So that was an amazing thing. So again, my faith grew as I got older, but in 2011, I had a lot of things go down. I had a divorce. My dad got sick and died within 12 days. I got started a new job, got fired from a job. It was just the worst year. And because all my friends were job related, I lost all my friends as well. Like, so I was stripped clean is what I like to call it in 2011. I just have anything. And so again, I turned to God. Like, who else do I have but God? He's the only person that can hang with me here, in a spiritual sense and be with me, and I can learn about him. And so my faith exponentially grew during that year. I started going to a church. It was a church my mom had started going to, my neighbors had started going to. So it was like I would go and it was like I got to hang with the people that I loved. And so I would say that year was just pivotal in my faith. And from there, I've grown and I've learned and I've absorbed and prayed and just really, really bolstered my connection to God. So that's the short answer.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that and for being open and vulnerable. You had mentioned before about how we are created in God's image and things like that. Could you expand more? Because I believe you're pretty passionate about body image in terms of your faith. Would you mind just expanding on that for us, please?
Sure, sure. So I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm not really good at, so like I can quote the Bible, but I not always can tell you where it's at, it's the same thing with music. Like I can sing you an entire song, but I could not tell you the name of the song or who sang it. So I remember words, but just not who was in charge of them. It's really an awful skill, but it's okay. So for me, like I was just, I had brought this up when we talked last in our group chat with our instructor. So I was actually just reading through Proverbs again in December. And in chapter 31, it's a very popular chapter because it defines what a noble woman is. And I found it extraordinarily fascinating because I was reading this through the eyes of body image, like what I was literally looking for. What does the Bible say about us and our bodies? And in this particular verse, and there's other things that I'll reference as well, but in this one, it covers a multitude of things about who a noble woman is, her character, her compassion, her work ethic, her desire to, take care of her family, her community, herself. It just covers so many things. But you know what it never says? It doesn't say anything about her wrinkles or her body shape or like how big she is or how skinny she is, or it doesn't say anything about those. The Bible bases us off of our character. It does not. I have not yet read it, found it anywhere. Doesn't mean I have read the entire Bible yet, but like there are definitely no messages in there about what we're supposed to look like. We are made in the image of God, and even when we say that, we don't have an image of God. There is no visual thing when we can picture. We have pictures of Jesus. We're not even sure any of those are even valid, honestly, because Jesus is not likely white. And most of the pictures we see are Jesus and he's white. And you're like, he was in the Middle East. So it's likely he was darker skinned than what we normally see. So what is interesting is like we don't even have an image. We don't even have a picture of what God is supposed to look like. And so, yet we are here judging what we're looking like. And it doesn't make any sense. And the Bible doesn't tell you that you're supposed to look like God. It doesn't say that. It just says you're made in the image of God, which means you were created by him in all of his spiritual sense. So again, when we're talking about our spiritual sense, we're talking about our kindness and our compassion and our love, our discipline, our community, our relationships, and all those types of things. Those are clearly spelled out in the Bible. Clearly, this is what God wants for us, and for us to be for him as well, to be the voice of him on this earth. And so there is, again, in that particular chapter, I think it's important because a lot of women turn to Proverbs 31 like to try to figure out like who they're supposed to be. And I think it's important to know that it doesn't talk about your body. It doesn't talk about what you're supposed to look like. Very, way more focused on, just who you are as a person. And our focus here in our culture now is almost very, I hate to say 100%, but dang it if it's not close to 100%, really more worried about what you look like. Like your content of your character is less important than how you look when you appear at a party. And I would much rather be like known for having, a great presence than I would appearing well dressed or well to do or well put together in my sense. And I think God would rather care about that as well.
That was so well said. And just like it's the idea that we are so much more than our body. And I
Yeah.
think that's slowly coming through for like social media, slowly but surely. But yeah, I agree that the majority of our society still is how do you look? How do you dress? Do you have the brand name stuff? And it is, I feel like it could be easy though to read that section in the Bible and miss the point of it not having anything to do with how you actually look. Because it's so easy to stay in that one state of mind of, well, the Bible's wrong then. My body is still the problem. I still need to focus on how I look. It's like, no, we are so much more than our body. You bring so much more to the table than just how you look.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, this is how often do we feed the positive information into our brain versus how often are we like bombarded, even without our desire to be bombarded by this information, which is like it's important how you look. We're bombarded by that constantly. Magazines, social media, movies, television. Yeah. Commercials. I have been tracking commercials now just because I'm like, oh look, there's another one trying to tell you that if you know, look a certain way or if you eat this food, you're gonna be like, I don't know. There's just so many messages that are coming at us. And unfortunately, if we don't surround ourselves with a different message, you will of course be led towards thinking a certain way. It's the same thing like if you track your eyes. I just heard this on or saw this from another business coaching person online. um she said that she was a painter, and when she was young was told like when you're painting a line, you're supposed to look ahead of the line, not at the paintbrush. And that's because if you track the where you're going, you do a straight line. But if you look at where you're at, you tend to shake and move and you don't get a straight line. So you have to look forward, right? So where you look is where you go, right? And I think that is so important because if you are looking at the worldly things and what's valuable here, you will go towards those things. Absolutely. You'll be pulled towards them. Those influences will be put into your ear and you might wonder about them. So if you never have an alternate message being put into your head and you don't start to shift if it's 90-10 now, where it's 10% positive body image information and 90% your body is not good enough, well, of course you're going to move towards and be drawn towards 90% of the time you're going to be thinking you're no good.
Yeah,
Period. End of story.
I think it's 80% of our thoughts are typically negative, and 95% of that 80% are repetitive. And
Mm.
so it's like it makes sense for our brains to go that way, but you can make the ratio, like you said, be 90% positive and 10% the negative. But I think we can get so hard on ourselves and like down on ourselves for, I had a poor body image day today. It's like we're still being surrounded by a lot of the same information and influences that led to us thinking our body was the problem in the first place. So, like you're saying, it's like start surrounding yourself with other influences that don't make you feel crappy about your body because your body's not the problem.
Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of people that think, well, how do I change how I think? Isn't that ingrained? Isn't that, born kind of thing? And let me tell you, I wouldn't have a job if I didn't think it was possible to change your thoughts. I do this all day, and it's just helping people challenge the thought that you're thinking. I heard a quote a long time ago, I just love it, which is don't believe everything you think.
Ooh, that's so good.
Right? Right? Because even the statistics you just gave, you think a thought and it doesn't mean that it's true. And that's 80% of what you're thinking, and it may not be true. That's that's wild, right? So when you think about, when you think about your thoughts, again, we're the most evolved mammal on the world. We can think about what we think about. We can double up and layer in like, wow, I just had this thought and it made me feel awful. And I won't go into the whole cognitive behavioral triangle of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, but it's so powerful because as soon as you have a thought about something, you are having a reaction, a feeling, and that feeling causes a reaction in your body, and then it causes then a behavior. And so if you had a particularly bad body image day and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my body is it's just disgusting. I hate my body. Well, that created a feeling. That feeling was likely shame. And then once you've shamed yourself, what kind of behavior do you do to make yourself feel better when you're in shame? It's likely a numbing practice or a distraction practice, and probably not a healthy one, I would guess. Maybe overeating, maybe drinking, maybe, scrolling on the social media, which put back into the message of you're not good enough. And so I am a big fan of challenging thoughts. Just challenging. It doesn't even have to do a full 180 switch on what you're thinking, but we want to make little adjustments that say, like, if you're thinking I had a bad body image day and I'm disgusting, ooh, okay, that's powerful. So how about I had a bad body image today? Is there something I can do to help myself? because it doesn't mean anything if you had a bad body image day. It doesn't mean anything more. But if you attach a thought to that, you're going to make it mean something. And then you're going to just be in the cycle of destruction.
Do you have any tips for challenging thoughts?
So there's some questions that I like people to ask. And what I like to call thoughts not bad or wrong or good or bad or right or wrong. It's, are they helpful or are they unhelpful? So important to decipher the difference, right? So thinking that your body is disgusting is not a helpful thought in any way. I, how is that going to bring you any joy, love, peace, anything, right? So what I would like to first question is there any evidence to the contrary of that thought? Okay. So if you're thinking to yourself, my body's disgusting, is there any evidence, actual evidence, not thoughts, but actual evidence to the contrary of you are disgusting? So, Leah, if I were to ask you that question, I'm not even saying that you have that thought process, okay? But like, if I were to ask you that question, what might you think? What might you come up with about your body?
Yeah, so to clarify, it's finding any sort of proof that my body is not disgusting.
Mhm.
Okay. Uh, well, I mean, I showered today,
Yes,
so
you keep it clean. That's
yeah.
evidence. Yes. Yeah, you keep it clean, right?
Mhm.
So it can also be things like, well, I like my hair, right? I did my hair today and it looks not today, but but like, like it could be a compliment or it could be you focusing in on things that you don't think are disgusting about your body. Could be your hands, it could be, oh, I love my feet, or I really like my breasts, or it could be something that you focus in on that's evidence that your body is not disgusting, right? And then once you have that, then you start asking further questions. Is there a pattern of thinking? Well, yes, more than likely you're going to say, yep, it's a pattern. Every time I do this or I eat this, I feel this way. That's a pattern. That's important to recognize, because that means it's not, we don't have to put it as a title of ourselves where I am disgusting. It could be a pattern of, man, when I drink soda, I don't feel good. That when I have a soda, I have body image day because I'm feeling bloated and I'm feeling, bigger than I normally do. And I'm a little lethargic. Okay. Well, that means it's soda's fault. It's not you. It's not your body. It's actually your body telling you it didn't like it. It's just your body trying to help you. Right. So,
Mhm.
and then there's other questions further and further down. Um, how will you feel about this thought in 6 months' time? And sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it's not, but I like to look at it in two different ways. One is if you looked at it, or if you thought about this thought still in 6 months, how will you feel? Ugh.
Pretty disgusting, probably.
Right? Like gross is the answer for me. Like I would feel gross 6 months down the line if I continued to think that my body was disgusting. So then the other alternative is like if I didn't have this thought, how would I feel in 6 months' time?
Mhm. Pretty good.
Different for sure, right? Like different. And you're like, well, I don't know what I would put in place. It doesn't matter. It's just how, if you didn't have the thought, how do you think you might feel, right? Give yourself the opportunity to think that this might be okay. The other question too is, and this is one of my favorites, super favorites. I use it for all sorts of things. If a friend came to you and told you that she had this particular day, what would you tell her? How would you be supportive? How would you be encouraging? What would you say to your friend? The reason I love this question is because we are all so heavily critical of ourselves. Critical, critical, critical. And I I would be hard pressed to say that anybody would talk to their friends the way that we talk to ourselves. I know I wouldn't. We wouldn't have any friends. Like, we would not have any friends. So if you had a bad body image day for whatever reason it was, and your friend came to you and said, "Oh, I'm just feeling really gross today. My body is just disgusting." What would you say to her?
Your
You
body's
know?
not the problem. I'd start there.
Well, yeah.
Do you ever have pushback though for asking that question and the client is under the belief that they're the exception, is like, well, of course I would say that to my friend because it's my friend. They're worthy, they're good, they're deserving of all of the things. But me, I'm different. There's like that limiting belief that, well, of course, that I would, of course, say that to them, and I would never say that they're disgusting. But for me, well, that's different.
So I have, and what I would usually go into then is tell me what makes you unworthy. What makes you different than your friend? And whatever the answer is, I would put right back at the top of the list. That's an unhelpful thought. And we'd go right through the whole list again. So, like, if they were to say, yeah, but my friend doesn't weigh as much as I do. Okay, that's fine. So, is that helpful to think that way? Do you think that if your friend did weigh as much as you did, that she would be less worthy? And most of the time they're like, well, no. Like, thank you for proving what I'm trying to teach you. Right? And it doesn't matter what you weigh, it doesn't matter what you did that day, it doesn't matter. You're still worthy. And again, going back to my Christian faith, when I work with Christian women, you're worthy no matter what. If you believe in Jesus, you're worthy. He has redeemed you. It doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter. Like, if I were to show up today, or Jesus would show up today, let's say, or if I were to die today and I show up on the doorstep, right? I know that Jesus is going to go through all of my thoughts and my actions, right? There's this sort of reckoning that we have to do, account for the sins that we've had. But I honestly, I do not believe that he's going to look at my weight and go, well, you're too fat, you can't get into heaven. Because nowhere in the Bible does it say you have to be thin to believe in Jesus so that Jesus will let you into heaven.
Could you imagine? Like, that would just be crazy.
We would all be starving ourselves, which, by the way, some of us are doing. And that's to gain that worthiness. And what I'm saying is, like, that's not a prerequisite to anything.
Mhm.
It's not a prerequisite to anything.
Love it so much. So, I also wanted to get your thoughts on the BMI chart, shifting
Mhm.
gears a little.
Yeah.
I guess just starting off with, are you a fan of it?
Bro, what do you think?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. There's, in all the, research that I've done, the reading that I've done, there's just no real reason we need to be using it other than to make women feel bad. And I say women, it's men too. They're not immune to the same thing. Because what that number gets to tell someone else is to slap a diagnosis on someone as obese or morbidly obese, which, by the way, horrible words. I honestly thought morbidly obese. I was like, oh my God, does that mean I'm dying? Like, literally, I thought it was a death sentence when I was younger and dumber, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Um, but that does not, just as the scale doesn't, it doesn't account for anything internally. It does not say, like, anything about who you are and what your health is at all. Because a football player, which, by the way, are some of the healthiest men because they're training constantly, right? A big majority of football players, like NFL football players, have a BMI that says that they're morbidly obese. And I'm like, no, they're actually the most fit vascularly that they could ever be. And they're muscular. They have trained their bodies to do some extraordinary things and to take some extraordinary hits. But yet their BMI says that they're unhealthy and unfit. Blows my mind. So it's sort of like, if you were, this is a little whatever, but if you were to, like, go to a butcher shop and you threw a steak on the scale, okay, the scale is going to tell you a number. How much does this thing weigh? That scale does not tell you how lean a cut of beef that is. It does. It's a sirloin, or if it's a ribeye. Ribeyes are marbled with fat, right? And a sirloin is very lean, but it doesn't tell you that. All it tells you that's how much this thing weighs. That's what BMI is.
To add on to that also, it's like it doesn't tell you how it was raised. It doesn't tell you how it grew up and how
How
it looks.
healthy it is. Yeah, how healthy that piece of meat is. Yeah. Not to compare us to a piece of meat, but you know what I'm saying. To me it's the same thing. It's just a measurement tool that science came up with as a way to find a way to put a number to something that's visually being seen so that the insurance companies can decide whether they're going to pay for something or not.
Right.
And don't get me started on insurance, okay?
Okay. I'll get you started on the scale then, because you mentioned the scale. And one thing that I was thinking about is how I almost feel like the BMI chart has a greater impact on someone's body image. And I personally, I really don't like the scale. I used to weigh myself like 5 times a day. I now haven't in over 2.5 years. But I was thinking about it because I feel like the scale tells you your worthiness like day by day kind of thing, because you tip most people step on it every day. And then the BMI chart, I feel like it's your overarching of like, oh, I'm obese. Oh, I'm claiming that title. And then it's like your overarching everyday, all day thoughts in your head. My question for you is, what are your thoughts then on using the terms of overweight, obese, morbidly obese to try and describe someone's quote unquote health?
Here's my answer to this. I understand from the medical model that we have and the way that our system is now created, as far as, doctors see you, they have to report what they are seeing and measuring to an insurance company that now has to reimburse money for that. Okay, like that's our system. And we had somewhere along the way had to have numbers, had to have like the measurements for all that. But I don't feel like, and it's sort of the same thing with diabetes. Okay, and I'll dive in a little bit into that too. But like it still doesn't tell you who that person is as a human being. So like we can get diagnoses of all sorts of things, cancers and all kinds of autoimmune diseases, and just there's so many things, you guys, there's so many things we can get diagnosed with that still does not determine who you are as a person or what your worth is. It just doesn't. um who would blame themselves for getting cancer? Oh, I did this, I'm horrible. Like, no, 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 no. It's a system. It's part of a system. That system requires numbers and measurements. But that is just one system of a lot of systems put together that runs our lives, that we're a part of, right? That doesn't have anything to do with our family system that we're a part of. It doesn't have anything to do with the spiritual system we're a part of, or the friendships or the employment system we're a part of. We're like a puzzle, and the medical system is one of the pieces of the puzzle. And that medical system requires numbers. It requires the weight. It requires the BMI. It requires, blood numbers, right? Like, again, we're talking about A1Cs for diabetes or whatever. Like, it requires numbers for reimbursement of a service, right? It requires those numbers for that doctor to get paid for the thing that he did. That's it. It doesn't put any moral anything into that. It is just a system. So when we're talking about like, well, my BMI, now I am obese. You have to be extraordinarily careful with any sentence that starts with I am, because you are declaring it. I am happy, or I am obsessed, or there's so many I am statements out there. You have to be careful, because as soon as you declare that you are something, you then tell your brain, this is what I'm going to think about all the time. You've declared it, you've put it into the world. You'll now perform and be and like create yourself to be this I am sentence. So if you decide to go with the BMI title of now I am obese, again, is that a helpful thought? No, because you're not just obese. You are so much more than that. You are still a friend. You are still a mother, a daughter. You're still so many other things. It's just a piece of the puzzle. So we get so consumed and focused on this one little piece because the word is awful, right? Again, the title. It's the same thing with cancer. You don't say, I am cancer. You don't say that. You don't say, I am diabetes. And if you did, then we'd be like, kind of like, what does that even mean? Who,
Mhm.
what? I don't understand. You are diabetes. What does that mean? Right? So the thing I was going to say about the diabetes thing, like I recently got diagnosed with it, and I'm doing what I can naturally to not fall into having to take medication and all kinds of things. And I'm doing remarkably well. Thank you, Jesus. My doctor was, very happy with me the last time he met with me. And what I didn't know, and again, this is just sharing information from the medical community is very difficult sometimes, but like no one told me that your A1C, when you check that, is actually an average of a 3-month period of what your blood level has been. I thought it was a current active number, and it's not. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. Like they don't tell you everything. They don't educate you on anything. I've been to the doctor and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're overweight. You need to lose weight." And then they sent me out. All right. You gonna tell me how? Or you give me an advice? You gonna send someone to me that can teach me? Like, no. No. So to me, I kind of can compartmentalize it into it's a system. And I just want to caution people to not take that system and slap a label on yourself and become that thing based off of one particular system of a whole. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
I have like so many things going through my mind right now. um, but I think the first thing was that, yeah, when we say I am, and then if the example is obese, then you say I'm obese, your brain is going to find proof throughout your day to be
Yeah.
like, oh, yep, look at that, still
Mhm.
not worthy because that's my title.
Mhm.
And it's just not helpful. It's not a helpful thought. I think that's such a great way of putting it. And then when you can say that, it's like, okay, I am worthy of helpful thoughts. And what would actually be helpful? Because just saying that, claiming that title, doesn't actually change your health. And like you're saying, it's like you can go into a doctor and they'll tell you to lose weight and then they don't tell you anything else. It's like, what's the weight loss going to do for my health? What's it actually going to change? And are there other ways to impact it without weight loss? Like, what actual health behaviors can I do? Um, but the other thing that I want to make sure that we added in, which we've been semi doing it, but I figured we could have like a little list here of everything the BMI chart doesn't take into account. Number one, your health. Also things like your muscle, your genetics. Any other thoughts for things that it doesn't take into account?
So many things. Those are the best as far as scientifically speaking. Yeah, like they don't include those things. Again, on a spiritual level, it doesn't include anything in that realm at all.
Mhm.
And again, it doesn't take into account who you are as a person. It doesn't measure your character. It doesn't measure your ability to be a friend or to be a caretaker. It doesn't measure your ability to be, a boss bitch or whatever. Sorry, we're not supposed to cuss, but like it doesn't measure any of those things. But it can destroy you in an instant.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah,
destroy you in an instant.
it's bringing it back to like you're saying is like we're human, we're all human. And your size does not determine your worthiness. I One of my favorite affirmations from when I was improving my body image is your worthiness of love, food, respect, and rest do not fluctuate with your weight. So it's like your
Mm.
weight can go up. I mean, you can be more worthy if you want to look at it that way, but your worthiness of
More of you to be worthy.
yeah. You're worthy of those things do not fluctuate when your weight changes. You are just
Yeah.
born worthy. And
Yeah.
that's period. End of discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, born worthy. And again, like if I were to just talk to the Christian women or people that have wondered about it, even more so when you accept Jesus into your heart, like you have been like traded up, like there's nothing you can do now to become unworthy. Absolutely nothing. Nope, not possible.
Do you think that there's anything specific we can do to discredit the BMI chart further in our minds? Or do you think it's more so of maybe changing how we look at the terms that the BMI chart uses to not make them be a negative or not have a negative connotation?
It's a tricky thing. So what I would say is to not put no pun intended, but not put weight on it, right? Like to not say that this again, not own it as who you are. That I think that's the biggest thing because again, it's just a number. The same thing with the scale, it's just a number. And that scale, can't tell you anything else about who you are as a person, right? And sometimes I think about it like the scale is just a measurement of gravity, you know? Like it's just science. But it has nothing, it cannot determine my character. It did. I used to ruin my mood for a day. Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. It had that power over me until I really realized that no, that's just a number. That is not anything else. It doesn't say anything else about who I am today or what I'm gonna do today or who I'm gonna be today. It could if I continuously think over and over again, oh my God, I'm horrible. I'm disgusting because that number. It's like, no, mm-mm. I have to take control of that. I'm in charge of that part of my thinking to make sure that I don't let a number determine who I actually am going to be. The I ams are so important. Again, I am worthy. If you don't feel worthy, that's fine. Go, I'm still okay, right? If you're struggling with worthiness, then how about can you just be okay? Like, yeah, that was the number, but I'm still okay.
I
And I'm
love
still gonna be awesome today, or I'm still gonna be loving today, or I'm still gonna love on people today, or I'm still gonna, do my job to the best I can today.
so, 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 so good. Um, Another question for you, because we're both doing the same program, is there anything that you've really loved learning from the program or just like an aha moment maybe?
Oh, there's been so many. One of the things that I love about this program is the paradigm shift in thinking. And I think that it melded well with how I already sort of think and feel about things in terms of I really want to teach people how to think differently about our system, again, of the world view of things versus there's something better and there's something more. And then it's never just this thing about what we're eating and it's never just this number on a scale or the BMI. It is so much more. There are so many compounded things going on that creates a response in our body, and our bodies are such good like barometers. They will tell you everything you need to know if we just slow down and pay attention and sort of allow ourselves to go inward a little bit. And I know that that can be scary for a lot of people, especially if there's been trauma or if there's been, really scary things that have happened with your body even. And you may not trust your body as much as you used to, or you feel like it's against you. But this program is sort of like part of like teaching us how to teach others, like how can we really pay attention to what's going on and allow our bodies to tell us what we need to do and be kind to ourselves. It's almost counterculture of what we're trying to learn and to teach people now is very counterculture to what we are taught and hear about day after day.
I think one of my favorite parts is how all of our eating challenges and body image challenges, like they're all there for a brilliant reason. And I think it's when he uses the words of the brilliant reason that I'm like, it's so true. Like our body is on our team. But I am wondering, do you have a favorite way of getting into your body?
A favorite way. So there is for when I'm particularly emotional, and I'm having a hard time figuring out what's the problem here, like what's going on, why am I feeling just usually it's irritation, like I'm itchy scratchy and I don't know why. There is a meditation that Kristen Neff does. Kristen Neff is the um founder guru of mindful self-compassion. And she has I'm pretty sure it's free either on her websites or I use an Insight Timer app that has this one particular meditation on it. And it's I should find it because I'm not gonna quote it correctly because I know myself. But it slows me down, which is, again, in the hustle bustle of the world and our brains are moving at just so fast. Um, it slows me down. It puts me in a compassionate place for myself. It helps me do like a body scan to see where this feeling is sitting, and then to really pay attention to that and give that space and that part of me love. And just, sort of like a good, kind, compassionate mama would do, or grandma, like whoever you could picture being, the one that soothes you the most, but it teaches us how to be that soothing person for ourselves. And so when I'm really like just in a tizzy about stuff, I have to have that talk through to kind of help me calm myself down and figure out like what is really going on here.
Mhm.
um Day to day, I've gotten so much better at really I just pay attention. If my stomach is, upset, that's an indication for me that something's awry because I don't get upset stomachs. I just don't. So either I have eaten something that it didn't agree with, or I'm really, really stressed. That's my stress signal. Fawn's got us upset stomach. So something's going on, right? So I just it's really just been a lot of trial and error. I've had some when we talk about like the body letting you know that something's not okay. So I've had quote unquote asthma, and I put quote unquote asthma because what I actually ended up finding out was that I was allergic to dairy, but
Oh,
it was coming out as asthma, like an asthma attack. Now, when we think of an allergic reactions can be anything, but we normally think of them as like a rash, right? Or if it's really bad, yeah, it might like squeeze your throat like an anaphylactic thing. But that's honestly what was happening. And unfortunately, I started noticing it with ice cream. So sad, my favorite thing in the whole world. Um, but I would eat ice cream, and about 30 minutes later, I would literally hear myself breathing and wheezing.
hmm.
And I was like, in the world is that noise? What's that whistle? I'm like, oh my God, it's me. And so I tuned into that, and I eventually realized like I did a few intentional experiments, right? I was like, okay, pay attention. I hear myself breathing. Okay, I'm gonna eat this ice cream and let's see what happens. And sure enough, every single time. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I said, I think I'm allergic to ice cream, which then kind of transferred into dairy, which is super sad because a second favorite food is cheese. But I was like, this is unbelievable. My body's been trying to tell me this for a very long period of time, and I just wasn't in tune with it. I
Mhm.
just I passed it off. I was just having an asthma, or it was just a bad breathing day, right? Like a bad body image day. I was having a bad breathing day. And I wasn't really paying attention to what was happening. My body was trying to tell me, I don't like this. I don't like this. So yeah, so now I don't eat ice cream. So sad.
Have you tried the So Delicious brand for dairy-free ice cream?
I haven't, and part of it is because I don't want the sugar either. Um, so and I'm sort of an ice cream snob. Like if I'm gonna have it, I want the good stuff.
That's fair.
So if I'm like every once in a while, like, my husband will go get some and I'm like, can I just have like 3 bites? I can have like
Mhm.
3 bites and that's fine. And honestly, it does fine. It gives me the taste and that sensation that I want, and then I'm perfectly satisfied. So I never thought that I would get to that spot because girl, I could put down some ice cream in the day.
I used to have like an entire tub of ice cream by myself. I used to have like an entire bag of 2 bite brownies.
Yep.
And right now we have like 6 boxes of pasta. And pasta for me, I would eat that every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I did do that in university. Um, but it's just so interesting how you can get to a point where it's like listening to my body, I can have the pasta, but I don't actually want it for every meal. And I don't, it's like you can have the 3 bites of ice cream. It's like, oh, that was actually good because I was present with it. It tasted really good.
I
I can
enjoyed the
have
heck out
it
of it because it was savor every bite, right?
again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
what would be your absolute favorite thing to talk on when it comes to body image?
I think that it's really just sort of connecting us back to our creator.
Mhm.
I just think that I cannot be any more wise than our creator is, right? As far as it really teaching us who we are, and that we're so much more than what's here on this earth and what people in our society and our culture says about who we are and what we're supposed to be, you know?
Have you done the speaking event yet?
No, it got postponed, and at this point, I don't know. She said sometime in the new year.
Well, when it does happen, I'd be happy, like, if it do you think it'll be recorded or anything?
I it might. Yeah, they usually put all of the things online to be viewed. Maybe not at the time, but later.
Okay,
Yeah.
when it happens, I'm happy to put that into the show notes for people to get to
Okay.
hear more from you. And because that's on that topic, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you so much for everything you shared, all of your knowledge, being open and vulnerable. It's not easy, but we appreciate it so much.
Mhm.
To finish, I have two questions that I ask all of my guests.
Okay.
The first one is, what do you wish you could go back and tell younger Fawn?
Oh, I would love to tell her that to trust, yeah, to trust in the higher power. He's got your back and things are going to be absolutely okay, beyond expectation. As it says in the Bible, more than we could ever ask or imagine. And sure enough, he's provided that. So, and also to be patient. I'm still trying to learn patience. It's like my life goals, my life purpose is learn some patience, but that's one of it too. And honestly, that, you know, this life is ours to take and have and to be whatever we want it to be.
I love that. The second question is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out learning to love their body more?
Mm, be kind to yourself. Be gentle. Again, as if you were talking to a friend, or if you can't do a friend, think about if you were talking to a child. Think about your favorite little kid, right? Your favorite little little person, and you heard them saying some of the things you were saying about yourself, and it broke your heart to hear it. And how would you take care of that little kid? That's what I want you to be doing for yourself.
That's so good. That just made me think of like my niece, and if I heard her saying those things, I'd be like,
Yeah, little baby girl, come here, right? You just be like, and you would just put her in a hug and you would love on her and tell her she's amazing. And you would tell her there's so much more to her than that. And that's exactly what I wanted everybody to know. Like, you are embraced, you are loved, you are so much more than that. So much more than that.
well, I'm already excited to re-listen to this episode. Thank you so much for taking time today to be with us and to share all of this. We really appreciate it. And I almost forgot the best part. How can they contact you and work with you?
Yeah, so I don't have a website yet. A little behind on the social media game. I have an email. It's fawn.weber210 at gmail.com. So it's pretty easy. I'm also on Psychology Today. If you just look me up by my name, I am located in Missouri. So, but yeah, my bio's on there. It's not necessarily uh geared towards the coaching part yet, like towards body image. It's just for my information about counseling. But that's the best ways to get a hold of me right now.
Awesome. Well, I will also link that in the show notes. So if you are interested in working with Fawn, you can just scroll down and the information will be clickable right there for you. But again, thank you so much. This is so much fun. And just remember that your body is not the problem.